morning. It's Monday, September 29th, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to address the UN General Assembly today in what is expected to be a response to Palestinian President Abbas and Iranian President Rouhani's speeches. Thousands of demonstrators remain on the streets of Hong Kong for another day of protests, defying tear gas and police. And later on the show, the inequality between male and female school dress codes in what we believe are modern times. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi, and we begin with our main topic of the day. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to give his address to the United Nations General Assembly today, ahead of his trip to New York. He said he will refute all of the lies directed at Israel with regard to the recently concluded war with Hamas in the Gaza Strip. His comments come after Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas, in his own UN address Friday, charged that Israel had conducted a war of genocide in Gaza. Much is expected of the Israeli Prime Minister's speech at a time when his country's international support is minimal and when the UN Assembly itself is focused more on the battle against the Islamic State. So, can he deliver? And where does the Palestinian-Israeli conflict stand in the UN's agenda, if at all? We are joined in studio by the president of the Levantine Group Consultancy and Security Analyst, Daniel Nisman. Daniel, good morning to you. And, of course, by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, good morning.
Good morning.
First, let's take a look at your report about the latest from the UN.
Between Daesh, Ebola, and Ukraine, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict didn't have much chance of catching the headlines at the United Nations General Assembly. So standing at the green marble podium on Friday, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas had to take an extremely combative approach.
In the name of Palestine and its people, I affirm here today, we will not forget and we will not forgive, and we will not allow war criminals to escape punishment.
In the aftermath of the 50-day Gaza war, Abbas gave a fierce speech, accusing Israel of genocide, likening its actions to terrorism, and demanding an end to the occupation. The main message: negotiations are over. Now it's time for diplomatic confrontation.
There is an occupation that must end now. There is a people that must be freed immediately. The hour of independence of the state of Palestine has arrived.
The world might not be paying much attention, but Israel, as could be expected, slammed the Palestinian show. Across the political spectrum, Abbas's message was depicted as inflammatory, inciting, and malicious. The Israeli Prime Minister, himself embarking on a New York trip Sunday, made sure everyone knows he intends to counterpunch Abbas's, quote, lies.
In my address to the UN General Assembly, I will refute all the lies being directed at us, and I will tell the truth about our state and about our heroic soldiers of the IDF, the most moral army in the world.
But the Palestinian confrontation is not the only thing on the Israeli Prime Minister's mind. Netanyahu will focus his speech on the threat of radical Islam and will try to renew his well-known warning about a nuclear Iran, as Jerusalem grows increasingly anxious over the warming ties between Tehran and the West. Like his Palestinian counterpart, he too will have to find an original way to dominate the news cycle.
Israel will not allow Iran to get nuclear weapons.
Abbas tried to refocus the international agenda on the Palestinian issue. Netanyahu will try to do the same with the Iranian nuclear threat. For both, the only audience that is certainly listening is the one back at home.
Now we're joined live from New York by I-24 News contributor to the and correspondent to the UNGA, Ayelet Vardi. Good morning, Ayelet. Okay, then we're going to start in the studio. Tal, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Essentially, a very strong speech from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. What was the reaction in the United States? And is this the type of thing that, garners a lot of, support in the UN, but in other places, no?
Well, the United States was furious about this speech. It was, again, not something that everyone was expected Abbas to give a very dramatic speech, but the language and the rhetoric that he used against Israel in this speech was, I think, surprising for specifically the United States, since there have been very close consultations in the past few days between Abbas and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry regarding the Security Council resolution that Abbas is planning to bring out in the upcoming days and weeks. But we had a very harsh reaction from the State Department using language that is usually served to condemn Israel's settlement activities. And this was the language that was used against Abbas on Friday and on Saturday. Now it's lashing back at Washington because the Palestinian Authority yesterday, the Foreign Ministry, did also issue a very harsh statement against the U.S. reaction. So we're actually seeing a rift between Washington and Ramallah at this moment, and that, of course, plays into the hands of the Israeli Prime Minister that is just arriving, and that it will play into his hands when he arrives to the meeting with President Obama on Wednesday.
No, definitely. And we also have on the phone with us Ziad Abu Ziad, who's the Fatah spokesperson. Ziad, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Speaking to us from Ramallah, I believe?
Jerusalem.
From Jerusalem. There we go. Speaking to us from Jerusalem, I want to ask you this, almost the same question as we asked Tal Shalevi, but also before that, Mahmoud Abbas gave a very strong speech at the UN. This comes, as we said, on the heels of a very bloody summer in the Middle East. One of its months being the Israeli-Hamas Gaza Strip war. That said, yesterday President Abbas had the following to say about the next phase and the right of the Palestinian people to fight for their cause. Let's hear.
Affirm before you that the people of Palestine hold fast, steadfast to its legitimate right to defend itself against the Israeli war machine and to its legitimate right to resist this colonial, racist Israeli occupation.
Ziad Abu Ziad from Jerusalem, speaking to us, the spokesperson for Fatah. I'm asking you because this sounds, when President Abbas actually says the right of the Palestinian people to fight for their cause, etc., etc. Is this a call to arms? Is this basically assessing the fact that the Palestinians will continue fighting rather than sitting at the negotiation table?
Not really. Not really. He said clearly that this is the time for the diplomatic confrontation with Israel, since the negotiations became a game that is being played in order to administrate the conflict rather than solving it. And because of the dangerous situation we're living in and the possibility that we will lose the two-state solution, this is why we went to the UN from the beginning and asked for the international community to come and get involved. Asking for a time frame isn't something extreme. We're calling for that exactly as the U.S. accepted that for Iran and other cases in the Middle East. We're calling for the time frame also to push all the sides in order to reach a solution. He didn't talk about hard resistance, and his strategies are known, and he's one of a few that applied almost 100% of all of what was requested from him since 2005, starting from the roadmap till today.
Then why do you think why did the State Department condemn the speech so much if everything is so okay?
Well, this was expected, and we expected that. But the thing is that we made it clear that with such a reaction, we will move to other steps that we will be taking ahead. There is an agreement between all of the Palestinian leadership from all the Palestinian movement that if the resolution will be denied in the Security Council, then we will go and have our other options, including the International Criminal Court, including the boycott of Israel officially and formally. And who knows, we have more extreme steps, such as throwing all the responsibility on Israel while it is occupying our lands. Please come ahead and take responsibility of what you're doing. The Palestinian Authority was simply agreed on as a temporary authority until a final solution is reached. But we completely refuse to turn the Palestinian Authority an authority that works to administrate the occupation for Israel. That does not seem to be ending soon.
Well, it's as we said, it was a strong speech perceived by some. That said, Daniel Nisman of the Levantine group, the Levantine Consultancy Group, does anybody at the UN, I'm going to put this bluntly, care about the Israeli-Palestinian issue right now, given the fact that, there's this big agenda and big push against Daesh, the Islamic State? Does anybody even listen to this before we get into the job that Netanyahu has coming up?
The PA and many officials have said that openly, including Abbas himself, that they're worried about the Palestinian issue being sucked underneath the tidal wave of ISIS, Daesh, all these other issues sweeping the region, and that's essentially what's going on. This speech by Mahmoud Abbas was almost I'm not going to say it was almost a last ditch efforts, you know, to spring the Palestinian issue just for it to be talked about, and it is working slightly. It's almost similar to when Hamas feeling that it was last summer or this summer feeling that it was being marginalized. It had to do this rash action to get itself back onto the international stage, to get the issue of Gaza back on the international stage. This is now Abbas's turn. He feels that especially the Palestinian street across the West Bank feels that the issue is not gaining any traction. Right. This is almost a desperate move by Abbas to kind of like a diplomatic shock and awe offensive, maybe even the start of one, to put the Palestinian issue, negotiations, all of that back into focus, to force the world to deal with him.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just in that respect, Netanyahu isn't as different from Abbas. He's not binded to the Israeli-Palestinian issue. He knows that the trend these days is not the Israeli-Palestinian issue. I think if it would be up to him
for many years, sadly, you know, in many ways, yeah.
But especially this year, and he saw this, we might say even desperate, as it was described, desperate attempt by Abbas. He will probably answer Abbas in his speech, but it won't be the main focus of his speech. Netanyahu is coming there to send a different message. Netanyahu is coming there to send a message about the threat of radical Islamism. He's coming there to send a message, and specifically about Iran and about the concessions that the West might be making towards Iran as part of this global coalition against IS, Daesh. So this is what Netanyahu doesn't have to actually address the Israeli-Palestinian issue. If it were up to him, I don't think he would be. He will be doing it now because he has to answer Abbas. But yesterday, when he was speaking to reporters on the plane over to New York, he promised them that the speech will be a very sharp and very clear speech. And he did say it will only be about two issues. He refused to tell them which two issues this were. Right. But about amongst these three issues that we know there are, the Israeli-Palestinian issue, IS, and Iran, he will probably combine two of them into some kind of discussion about Israel's right to defend itself, and that might be the response to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's speech.
No, definitely. And joining us from New York is Ayelet Vardi, I-24 News contributor at the UNG. Ayelet, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, speaking of tonight's speech, Daniel, before we go back to you, speaking of tonight's speech, what do we know that to expect from Netanyahu's speech at the UN today?
Well, as I think you mentioned before, Netanyahu was drafting the last draft while he was on his way to the U.S. People here estimate that he will focus, first and foremost, he will explain and defend Israel's actions during Operation Protective Edge, and he will argue against Abbas's claims of genocide and war crimes. Second, he has done, as he's done in several recent speeches, he will likely to try and compare the human rights violation committed by Hamas to those that the world knows have been committed by ISIS.
Isn't he going to focus mostly about Iran? Is that one thing that, you know, we are to expect, that he's going to try and basically focus on the Iranian issue?
Definitely, Netanyahu is going to try to refocus the world on the Iranian issues in the same way that Abbas was trying to refocus the world on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Netanyahu is trying to maintain the status quo at this point. At least that's how it seems. And for him, the more important part is to emphasize that the Iranian threat is still here, is still pressing, and this is the one objective that Netanyahu is coming to address, other than ISIS, and to explain Israel's stand about the recent summer war, and of course, to protect Israel and say that Israel was not committing war crimes and explain why.
Right. Daniel Nisman, you're smiling.
There's little doubt. I mean, the word that all the pundits seem to be describing the speech is in word reactive. And he also said that before he stepped onto the plane. He's going, they said this, so we're going to say this. That. He's also one of the last people to speak. I would like to say that there's a very interesting opportunity for the Prime Minister. In the Middle East right now, there are basically three sides all fighting each other simultaneously. There is the Iranian axis, which is Iran, Hezbollah, all the Shiite factions, the Assad regime. Right. There's the Sunni Islamists, which is Turkey, Qatar, Tunisia, the Regional Muslim Brotherhood movement. Within that, you also have, I would place, al-Qaeda groups. And then you have the moderate Sunni axis, okay, which is Saudi Arabia, the Gulf monarchies, Egypt and Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority. The speech at the UN, these General Assembly speeches are usually supposed to lay out your diplomatic plan, your policy plan for the entire world, your strategy. This is a key opportunity for the Prime Minister to place Israel somewhere in one of those three sides. And obviously the most optimal one is the Sunni axis. They were the ones that sided with Israel during the Gaza offensive, very much sided with Israel, especially Egypt. You see the United States, which was hovering, if we have the three axes, hovering in the middle, closing towards Iran, cozying up with the Islamists and even going away from the moderate Sunnis. But now, with the offensive against ISIS, you have the United States returning to the moderate Sunni axis, fighting with Saudi Arabia openly. Okay?
Right.
This is a key opportunity for Israel to claim a side. But what do they have to do that? They have to propose something. They have to initiate something. And if Netanyahu's speech will be reactive, then this could be something that the Israelis commonly say about the Palestinians, that they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
No, go ahead. But just before we go to that, because Tal, this is my question to you. When you mentioned this, Daniel, listen, that's very interesting. But then I want to refer to it. Granted, it's not the United States; it's David Cameron of the UK. But do we have this tweet on? When we have David Cameron, the UK Prime Minister, meeting with Rouhani for the first time, a British Prime Minister in 35 years, meets with the Iranian president.
They've also been meeting with the Assad regime, their MI6.
Okay, but still.
Cozying up.
No, exactly, cozying up, but there we have it. Meeting with the Assad regime, fine. Meeting with Rouhani, which again, it's like one step of separation when you talk about the Brit. Then you have also the attraction to Iran. With that, for Tal Shalev, I'm asking you, when Netanyahu, giving that speech, granted, there is an opportunity to make some changes. Is that something that if he doesn't do over that stage, is that something he's going to do when he meets the United States President Obama a day after?
Well, that's definitely going to be a big focus of the talk between Netanyahu and Obama. But just to regard what Daniel said earlier, Netanyahu has been sending kind of mixed messages about this new regional opportunities that lay ahead of Israel because of the new global situation and this new all of these axes in the Middle East. Actually, last week he had a very interesting statement, a quote that he gave. He was in a closed security briefing. And he was asked about it. It was about the aftermath of the Gaza war. And Netanyahu says, this is a quote. He says to this security briefing, he says, the relationship between me and Mahmoud Abbas are not as bad as everyone thinks they are. But I don't see a chance for renewing negotiations in the short run. But in the long run, if there is a regional cooperation on IS, Iran, and other issues, then there is an opportunity to have new arrangements also between Israel and the Palestinian. Will Netanyahu, so on the one hand, Netanyahu is talking about some kind of new diplomatic vision that does entail everything together to put the Israeli-Palestinian issue inside some kind of regional alliance. On the other hand, he gave an interview to the Jerusalem Post before the Jewish New Year, in which he said that the Saudi initiative is not on the table, is not relevant anymore to nothing. So Netanyahu, I think, would very much like to present a new diplomatic initiative to the world. Is he willing to give? I don't know if he really has one to put on the table, one that is really realistic and one that can be accepted by the fellow Arab countries. Israel would probably love to have the Israeli-Palestinian issue put on the side and let's just make peace based on our strategic interests. But that might not work as well for these Arab countries. Right. But in any case, Iran, yes, is going to be a big issue in the meeting specifically with Obama specifically because Israel is very concerned about reports of the U.S. offering new deals to Iran and
with that deadline looming as well. It's November, I think, where the world powers are supposed to sign, to finalize the deal with Iran. But fascinating, interesting point. Ziad Abu Ziad from Jerusalem, still with us, spokesperson of Fatah. Then my question to you, as if you've heard here, what can be said on that stage by Netanyahu and what are the options? But again, we have President Mahmoud Abbas standing on the stage in the UN and actually sort of refuting and putting aside and blowing up any chance of negotiations. And this is what he had to say to him on Friday when he gave the speech.
First of all, it is possible to simply return to the past patterns of work which repeatedly failed is naive at best. and in any case erroneous, as it ignores the fact that it is no longer acceptable nor possible to repeat methods that have proven futile or to continue with approaches that have repeatedly failed and require comprehensive review and radical correction.
And joining us again, Ziad Abu Ziad from Jerusalem. So my question to you, I mean, it just sounds like President Abbas is actually, putting the kibosh, is saying no to any type of negotiation, that the negotiations thus far have not worked, and that it's pointless to sit down. So, what is the idea, the agenda? If you put a deadline and you're asking the international community to give a deadline to the formation of a Palestinian state, but how does one want to reach it without negotiations?
But the problem isn't with negotiations. The problem is with the way the current Israeli Prime Minister is negotiating. He is not even understanding that with his current continuous building of settlements in the West Bank, with his current policies, he's destroying what is left from the peace process and the two-state solution. I just have one question that we keep on wondering about. What would Netanyahu say to the Israeli people after 5 years when you will have more than 1 million settlers living in the West Bank, and it will be impossible at all to give any part of it for a Palestinian state in the future? We are not against the negotiations. We want to end this conflict and to reach a solution and to have two states living side by side. But to turn these negotiations into a process of playing and manipulating and refusing to make compromises and to sacrifice, this is something that we won't accept. And the other only option that we have in order to move forward is this diplomatic confrontation that we believe in. President Abbas made it clear from the first day for him in office. He does not believe in violence, but he completely believes in diplomatic confrontation and process. And that's why he's moving now into the UN and possibly the international court.
But he's also moving to the UN and the international court at a time where Daniel Nisser mentioned something very true, where there are sort of three powers in the Middle East that are having a main battle, and everybody around has to pick sides. And when it comes to the Palestinian Authority and Gaza, it seems that there's also a divide, irrespective of the fact that now there's supposedly a unity government, but there is a divide of ideology there that is very hard to reconcile. So how is that going to happen in the event of, of sitting down at a table or, going to a diplomatic solution, when the two sides there have different opinions and agendas? And we're talking about Hamas and Fatah.
2 points. First of all, as I don't know if you heard me before when I said that, Saudi Arabia and Egypt were actually very important key roles in this campaign against ISIS in the region. They are totally involved in the Palestinian plan. They're supporting it, and they will be involved in the future when talking about the details of the plan and how to move forward.
But they were also supportive of Israel moves during the last operation that Israel carried out in the Gaza Strip. I mean, nobody comes out.
They supported the Israeli operation?
They did not support it, but they didn't come front out and, completely condemn it. And behind the scenes...
No, listen, I think we should remember that Egypt was the only reason that we reached a kind of a ceasefire in Gaza, and they condemned completely the killing of more than 2,000 Palestinians. But I want to go back to the point that he talked about reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas. Azzam al-Ahmad, who is member of the Central Committee of the Fatah, has been sent by President Abbas to sit with Hamas in Gaza a couple of days ago. And an agreement, as I said in the last time I talked to you, an agreement was reached, and the unity government will start to function formally and completely after the Muslims' Eid vacation, in which there will be security members being moved to Gaza to take control of the borders. And there is even the information about the number of these security members. Hamas has agreed to our terms in which we would not accept another chaos of and lack of law that needs to be applied in Gaza, especially when talking about the rebuilding of Gaza. And things are moving forward. I doubt the sources that say that there is still a division. Of course, there is a difference in the ideology, but this does not mean that cooperation can't be reached for the sake of the thousands of Palestinians are still left there with the destruction of the last war.
One would only hope, but Daniel Nisman, here's my question to you. There is an ideology divide there. And, everybody wants unity and wants to see, something moving forward, although, it's problematic when it comes to discussion with Israel. Yes.
That's the key point about moving forward, and especially if we go back to the issue of the West Bankers, who have until now been very quiet. We know that many of them have admiration for the conflict in Gaza, for the fight that Hamas put up, and they want to see something moving forward. And this all goes back to the speech, to Netanyahu's upcoming speech and the opportunities. Look at the Middle East now as a bunch of marbles moving around on this table, okay? Different actors are moving, okay? And it's simple physics. The marbles that stay in place, okay, whether it be Israel or the government in Egypt, the ones that try to maintain the status quo, those are the ones that are going to get knocked, okay? So now the West Bankers are looking, and they're looking to see who's going to take them forward. Abbas is trying to take them forward, okay? That's obviously dependent on foreign powers in the UN Security Council, dependent on Israel negotiating. If Israel, and the Prime Minister specifically, insists on maintaining the status quo in this region, okay, it's not like it has been for the last 30 years of Arab dictatorships. People want to see something moving forward. And I would bet, just like this summer, how Israel was sort of knocked by the regional turmoil, Muslim Brotherhood, anti-Muslim Brotherhood issues in Gaza, Israel was knocked. I would bet that the longer Israel insists on staying static, maintaining the status quo, it will get knocked again, possibly this time from the West Bankers.
That would be great, just that the Israeli Prime Minister isn't someone who really believes in a lot of changings, and he actually likes status quo, and he actually has been calling to stability and to changes.
That's the essence of his politics.
And also, Netanyahu emerged out of the Gaza war. One of his sentences was, "This is why Israel has to keep its security and keep the security in its hands and not give away security authorities."
And to that, I would argue, rockets on Israel's airport, rockets on Tel Aviv are now the norm, the new status quo, as the answer to the insistence on maintaining it.
The question is, does Prime Minister Netanyahu understand that the status quo is changing, that it's beyond his control? I mean, if Tzipi Livni, and you tell me, she's the foreign minister, Tzipi Livni, one of his cabinet minister, she's sitting down with a coalition. She supposedly had a meeting with the Arab coalition leaders.
Well, yes, it was last week, but there's no real pressure inside Israel on it. We have to remember Netanyahu, in the end, is a political creature, first and foremost. There's no pressure in Israel at this moment to move anywhere, not to a new diplomatic, not a real pressure to move to a diplomatic initiative, not to do anything groundbreaking, and definitely that is something Netanyahu wants, first and foremost, to keep his control. So if he doesn't have political pressure to do so, we won't really see an incentive to do so.
And to that, I would just like to say that you can't necessarily blame the Israeli people, as Tal said, for believing that, because when the leaders are saying, look what happens if we try to make a change, these are all the threats that can happen, perhaps it's time for Israeli leaders to say, if we don't make a change, here's what's going to happen. And with the rockets on the airport in Tel Aviv from this last conflict, I think maybe people in Israel are already starting to understand that something needs to move one way or the other.
No, Malky, leave it to the people. Thank you both for joining us. Ziad was Ziad on the phone from Jerusalem as well. When we get back, Sergei Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, says now is the time to improve Russia's nuclear weapons. We'll take a closer look. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. It is still Monday, September 29th, and this is the place to be. I-24 News Morning Edition. Why? Because it's the place where we say hello and good morning to Anthony Grant, who usually discusses the news you missed while scanning the headlines, but mentioned this beautiful phrase a second ago, saying, have you noticed, what was it, the changing seasons?
As demonstrated by the sea.
As demonstrated by the sea.
Yes, indeed.
A moment of zen as we go through the holidays.
Yes, a little moment of zen. And
headlines.
A nice warm-up to a great headline from Haaretz, which I really liked, which says, late Iraq entry shows United Kingdom is a third-rate power. Yeah. It's a little opinionated, but there could be some truth to it.
I think Haaretz is now in for it with the Queen. I don't think
they should have thought very carefully before doing that headline.
Power, yes. What would she say? I think the Queen probably say, think very carefully.
Yeah,
yeah.
Exactly.
Before, another headline.
But you know, on a related note, the Cyprus Mail, of course, wrote about this headline: British fighters ran their first mission from Akrotiri over the weekend, which is one of two sovereign British bases on the island of Cyprus, not far from Israel. But as they noted, these fighter jets went on a mission, but it was just for intelligence gathering. There was no bombing, nothing like that. So you could say it was a little limp-wristed. Some would say maybe Haaretz.
As Haaretz would claim.
But on
not a very sexy flight. Okay.
No, but you know, of course, making use of their long-time bases there. But at the same time, in the British press, you have the Times of London saying that bombing jihadis is futile, according to a top British general, General Lord Richards. So again, there's a lot going on.
Well, there's dissent within the British upper echelon of the military. Yeah, I'm sure he's not. He has several, followers when he says that. As everybody's wondering about the strategy of the coalition currently. But I will just, leave it at that.
Yeah, but
before I put my opinion in. Yeah.
According to his opinion, is that that he's looking back to 2003 and what it took to get rid of Saddam Hussein, more than just things from the air. So again, it's part of the overall debate that
boots on the ground, rather, or from the air.
Basically,
a
combination.
With this, of course, I was thinking of the mass demonstrations in England before 2003 about that war. There were, exactly, there were. Thank you. Right. Okay. Well, here we go for another war.
Across the channel, of course, in France, they've got other fish to fry. And Le Monde, kind of the left of center paper, with that gloomy picture, reports that the right has retaken a majority in the French Senate, or the French Sénat, which the takeaway from this is that for the first time, there's two seats there that are occupied by the National Front. It's kind of more symbolic at this point, the actual power that they wield, but it is, again, kind of a symbolic thing that you would have representatives of the far right that are now actually sitting in one of the upper house of the French
It has been taking a turn to the right for several, over the course of the last several years, hasn't it?
It's been, a steady creep, I guess you could say. This also poses problems for François Hollande, and of course Sarkozy is winding up a potential of a new campaign. So, this could be the return of the right slowly happening.
He's François Hollande's credibility crisis in France.
Which has never been that strong.
The right will rule the Senate now, the Senat.
I know, it sounds so much better in French.
And this is a repercussion of the local elections, because the system in France, they elect the senators from the local authorities. It's not a direct vote.
It does. Does it give the stage for Sarkozy to come back? Irrespective of that, I have to say the return of Sarkozy makes me very happy.
That certainly will shake things up.
Just because as a journalist, he's one of the leaders who keeps on giving.
I'm happy with the return of his wife.
Well, she keeps on singing,
yes.
Which is nice. Got to talk about Hong Kong for a moment here. Of course, there have been a lot of protests. The South China Morning Post was reporting last night that Chunying Lung, who is the basically Beijing's man in Hong Kong, has urged Hong Kong protesters to disperse. The Occupy Central movement is really gaining steam, and there have been tear gas use against them by Chinese police in Hong Kong, and this has been escalating for a while.
No, definitely. We're going to take a closer look at it a bit on, but it has been remarkable pictures over the course of the weekend of looking at these mass demonstrations that are very reminiscent of the social uprising that we've seen in years past, but with a different agenda this time.
Yeah, but no one could say they haven't seen this coming, and so it's anyway. Another Los Angeles Times and all the West American papers are reporting on it too. The fact that tear gas, rubber bullets were used, and this is something that is probably not going to diminish before it leaves the headlines.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
And over in Miami.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
USA Today.
Back to Florida.
15 people were hurt in a Miami nightclub shooting the other day. 100 shots from 4 guns erupted at a nightclub called The Spot. Now,
don't ever take me there.
This is not exactly Les Bains Douches or some fancy.
How many guns were in that place?
Well, at least 4 guns, 100 shots, 15 people wounded, ages from like 11 years old to 25.
What? 11?
I don't know what 11-year-olds.
11-year-olds.
I don't know what 11-year-olds were doing in a.
Yeah.
It's,
okay.
you know, it's...
Grandchildren of some Jewish people who retired to Florida? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, they were maybe, you know, overdosing on gefilte fish over the holiday. I don't know, but
it's the holiday
they
season.
should not have been in that club.
I think many of us would understand putting out a gun at the dinner table, but I just said it. Yes.
Anyway, keeping things interesting in the Miami of the North, which is Toronto, Rob Ford has made a first public appearance since his cancer diagnosis earlier a few months ago. Yes, he's suffering from this, but despite that, he said he is not out of the race for re-election to become, well, the next mayoral race of Toronto. So he's, again, keeping things interesting.
My God. I do hope he gets better, but clearly he has proven over and over again that nothing will stop him.
He is resilient. Yes. So
nothing.
I think that this is just one more thing that he will hopefully, you know, sail through. And again, it's going to keep things interesting in local politics in Toronto.
In Toronto, and Canada has never gotten so much press since that man came about. So
keeping
yes,
it interesting.
Keeping it interesting. Tony, stay with us, but thank you for this segment. We'll see you also in the next hour. And on to our next topic, moving to Russia, and its Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who was quoted as saying that the time has come for Russia to modernize their nuclear and conventional arsenals. That's in an interview given to Russia Today. The foreign minister also blamed the United States for the breakdown in relations with his country and took stabs at the U.S.-led coalition against ISIS-Daesh, calling it too little, too late. Now, to break this down, we're very happy, of course, to be joined by Channel 2 Foreign Affairs Senior Editor Arad Nir. Arad, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And before we take a closer look, let's look at the following report.
5 years after former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton gave a reset button to her Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov to express her desire to open a new chapter in relations between the two countries, Lavrov is now asking for a new reset.
We are absolutely interested in normalizing our relations, but it wasn't us who destroyed them. And now there needs to probably be, like, I don't know whether Americans could call it reset.
This may be the worst crisis between Moscow and Washington since the end of the Cold War. Many point to Russian involvement in the Ukrainian crisis and the American and European sanctions on Russia as a main trigger to the deterioration. But apparently the rift goes much deeper. Yesterday, Lavrov chided the US for joining too late to the battle against terrorist groups in Iraq and Syria, while Russia, as Lavrov put it, recognized the threat immediately.
We warned against the temptation to make allies with almost anybody who proclaimed himself as an enemy of Bashar al-Assad, be it Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra Front, and others seeking the change of regime, including Daesh, which today is the focus of our attention. As the saying goes, better late than never.
The dispute in Ukraine is far from being resolved after numerous ceasefires were repeatedly broken. However, some attempts to ease the tension between Moscow and Kiev have recently been made. Last Friday, Russian officials said they found a solution to the gas crisis as the EU moved closer to brokering a deal between the two nations that will provide at least 5 billion cubic meters of gas to prevent a winter shortfall. But as tension remains, it may be a cold winter in Kiev, Moscow, and perhaps Washington too.
Arad Nir, Senior Foreign Affairs Editor of Channel 2 in Israel. When the Russian foreign minister says it's time for Russia to revamp its nuclear arsenal, what's really behind that?
Well, we were discussing the sea behind you earlier in the show, in your show. So it's not that romantic, not so Zenic, but we cannot detach the change of seasons from the political, international politics reality. What do I mean by this? Russia is changing its position now because of the temperatures. The temperatures in Europe are going down. Russia has the key for the heating systems of Europe. So now Russia can claim what it believes it deserves. And for the whole summer, Russia failed or failed as if it is failing to convince the West that it is doing right, that it is getting what belongs to it, be it Ukraine, be it Syria. Right. Yes, I mean, Russia is claiming since the beginning of the crisis in Syria that Assad is part of the solution. He is not the problem. And now again, they see what happened. We heard in the item we You've just showed us that, Lavrov was standing there in the UN saying, I told you so. That's it. That's exactly it. We told you so. So see what's happening now. And mind you, he's right. So now, I think they, in this situation, they are right, because in the very beginning of the crisis in Syria, I saw your face. So this is why I'm emphasizing it. From the very beginning in Syria, they cleared all the devils that fought Assad. The West cleared all the devils that were there to oust Assad. Right. And apparently now we are paying the price.
No, but it's interesting that you pointed that, because the current coalition that is forming, the United States is trying to form. The United States State Department keeps stressing, so does the Obama, the White House, that it doesn't mean that, we're with Assad, but at the end of the day they are, and the Russians know that, right?
The Russians know that, and the Russians want to emphasize it, and they want to cash the benefit out of the fact that they were there to say it first. They want Assad to remain on their side and not shift changes later on. But Assad is the lesser problem at the moment, even though they have the ISIS problems of their own. There's nearly 1,000 Russian fighters, volunteers in the ISIS forces, and eventually they plan to send them back home. The headquarters of the Islamic State, they do not care about the rifts between East and West, Russia and United States, Russia and Europe. They target all the region around them. So coming back to Russia's emphasis on the relationship between Washington and Moscow, I think that they find it a very appropriate moment now to gain back the credibility, to gain back the position that they have lost over the course of Obama's administration. Right. Obama was trying from the very beginning, to restart, to reset the relationship. And mind you, they're still talking about reset. So when are you talking, when does the computer technician tell you, try to reset your computer?
Right.
When you're in deep trouble.
When you're in deep trouble. Is this also a line actually directed towards, and maybe I'm theorizing here, but towards the upcoming elections in the United States for the Senate and Congress, of trying to undermine Obama in some way? Because it's a line that, even though Lavrov says, it's not a Cold War, but it's a line that kind of stresses it's a new Cold War.
They are trying to undermine Obama from the very beginning. In any possible way, be it in the upcoming election, be it in the international arena, be it vis-a-vis the European Union. We must remember, the main focus now is on Ukraine and the sort of expansion of the European Union, at least in its influence, much closer to Russia. Poroshenko, the Ukrainian president, actually achieved a certain ceasefire, which is holding in the east of Ukraine with the Russians. The Russians did not withdraw. The Russians got what they wanted there, and they keep on getting what they want because they do not succumb. And now they have the opportunity to use this change of weather, to use the upcoming cold front, but literal cold front, to use it to gain more in this arena, because they have the power. They have the key to the heating system.
Rodney, fascinating stuff. Thank you for joining us this morning. When we get back, in Hong Kong, tear gas used against protesters as police clash with pro-democracy demonstrators. We'll take a closer look. First, though, let's hear some more of this morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Monday, September 29th, 2014. This is still the morning edition on I-24 News. Last I checked, I'm still Lavrov. Thank you for staying with us as we move on to our next topic. After a week of demonstrations in Hong Kong, tens of thousands of pro-democracy protesters clashed with security forces deployed in front of the government building in Beijing. Now, there was tear gas use, there was violence, and to hear more about it, we are joined in studio by I-24 News senior editor Ruthie Sinai. Ruthie, good morning to you.
Yeah.
Before we break it down, let's take a look at the following report.
I think liberty and democracy is the most important values in our life, and so we treasure this kind of values. And we see that the political policy addressed by the Chinese government is so dictator. It's like a dictatorship. So I think we have to stand out to fight for this. To fight for the democracy. Yeah.
Well, I'm not quite surprised of it because yesterday the news is alive, and all the citizens in Hong Kong we all know this, and I think all of us will support the students here, and I think even not today, maybe tomorrow or even later, more people will come and we will support and we will fight for our democracy.
Well, we just heard the voices of the demonstrators in Hong Kong, and we're joined over the phone right now from Hong Kong by Hong Kong resident Ina. Ina, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's start by this. How has it been today? Is it quiet? Are the demonstrators still on the street? What are we seeing there?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How has it been in Hong Kong today? Is it quiet? Are the demonstrators still on the street?
I have been sort of I have sort of avoided like the areas which where the demonstrations are taking place. But I'm actually one of the occupied areas is it's Mong Kok, and I'm actually like about 10 minutes walk from the area now.
Right, and
where I am is very quiet.
But how many people are in the streets of Hong Kong? I mean, it's massive numbers, isn't it?
Massive numbers. Yes, I have avoided mainstream media, especially like television media. So I'm mostly following the protests on social media, and also one of the newspapers that actually affiliated this. So from that source, I think there are over 10,000 people on the streets in Mong Kok.
Right,
and it's one of the areas that are occupied for the time being.
Now, how violent did it get over the course of the last few days?
This is very hard. I don't think they're violent at all, because I have a child to take care of, so I can't actually be on the street. But many of my friends, they are on the street supporting students, and from the pictures that they've uploaded onto Facebook and other social media, I don't see violence at all. Like the students and the protesters, they were holding their hands up high, like when being confronted with the riot police.
Right.
Of course, like they're holding their hands or their arms up. Means it's a gesture that they have no intention to clash with the police.
Now, how about
sorry?
No, but and the police are using violence, which is what we're seeing. How did this all start, though? These demonstrations.
These demonstrations actually, it's sort of like boiled up over 2 years. When the consultation for political reform for the next chief executive election in 2017 first started in 2010, and this movement called Occupy Central with Peace and Love was proposed by 2 scholars and a reverend back in 2010, and this really is the last resort. Like we have tried to make our opinions heard by the government, and there have been peaceful demonstrations. By peaceful demonstration, I don't mean this demonstration today is not peaceful, okay? But we have had marches on the streets, and we have had rallies. But the government hasn't really listened to our opinion, and the sort of plan that the National People's Congress has just announced is just a very, very backward plan. It's even it's even more, it's even less democratic than our past CE election in 2012.
What the demonstrators do want. Ine, do stay safe, and thank you for joining us this morning on the phone from Hong Kong. Ruthie Sinai, senior news editor for I-24 News. So what do these demonstrators want? And we have to remind people of Hong Kong and its relations with China, don't we?
Yeah. Well, look, first of all, just a brief update. The police this morning have pulled away from the streets. They've basically decided to to let the demonstrators, kind of
be there.
Be there, yeah.
Is that because of condemnation of the pictures that we saw?
Because of the condemnations. Look, it's a big challenge to police because what do you do with a group calling itself Occupy with Love and Occupy Central with Love and Peace?
Yeah.
It's a challenge to police forces anywhere that when you have a civil disobedience campaign, this is what it is. Right. You were asking before what prompted it, and one of the things, you really see, the Occupy Wall Street kind of ideology, kind of, and also I would say even the Arab Spring,
Definitely.
And basically, look, we've got Hong Kong was handed over by the British back to the Chinese in 1997, and the agreement was that by 2017, 20 years later, there would be elections. The Chinese are saying, hey, you're going to have your elections, but we are going to decide who the candidates will be.
Elect.
We're going to vet them, and we're going to give you a small choice between 2 or 3 people at most.
That are pro-China, that will maintain the connection with China.
Yeah. Now, the system is what, the slogan has been all along, it's one country, we're talking about one country, but 2 systems. In other words, the system that Hong Kong had all these years, which was free market and free trade and so on, is not very westernized, very open to the West, and of course with a lot of the world looking on, Western market. I mean, the Hong Kong stock exchange is a big
deal.
Player, big player. So the Chinese said that's fine. We'll have 2 systems. We'll have what we use in China, which is far from being communist anymore anyway, and we'll have the Hong Kong system, but it's going to be one state. Right. And this is the first test, really, of this slogan.
It's going very well because as you mentioned, if the Chinese are trying to manipulate the 2017 elections, and we're looking at peaceful demonstrators, why even start the tear gas on them? That's the frightening
part. Because the thing is, I think they were overwhelmed. I think they didn't by the numbers. I think, as we saw in the pictures too, you've got this financial district of Hong Kong. Look, Hong Kong is very crowded. It's one of the most crowded places in the world, and so you've got these masses of humanity going, to the financial district, threatening, the stock exchange and the other free flow of commerce, shipping. I mean, it really is a hub. A lot of money, and I think they kind of freaked out basically, and now they've gotten, maybe gotten a little smarter, and decided to pull back from.
But an interesting thing to look at when it comes to exactly what will happen.
And also, the Chinese. The other problem is the Chinese have other secessionist areas to worry about. I mean, they've got Tibet, they've got Xinjiang. I mean, it's not comparable to Hong Kong, but it's still, they still feel that they need to keep their hands on the reins in order to prevent, other people getting such strange ideas about democracy and freedom.
Democracy and their own rule.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Stefan, of course, you'll always help us to follow up on them. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Stay for the next one. I asked Ruthie Sinai to stay because I'm sure she will enjoy, as I will, the next spiral viral thing that is the web review by Tony Grant. Let's talk about the wedding.
The wedding, yes. Well, we can't not talk about it because everyone is talking about the fact that, of course, George Clooney and Amal Alamuddin have become officially married. Yes, Venice.
Weddings, plural.
It's weddings.
Weddings.
Yes, because today is a civil ceremony and there was some sort of religious ceremony.
Yes, they sealed off Venice.
It's a festival. It's a festival.
I have to say, for somebody who was such, a proclaimed bachelor, to go all the way, he's like the bride in this in many ways.
The thing is, as someone was mentioning to me in the studio, it's like, does Italy have no other celebrity? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all Clooney all the time.
All the time.
You know, people of a certain generation, such as myself, know him from The Facts of Life when he was George the Handyman.
Thank you.
Okay.
With a lot of big
hair.
Yeah. With the fro thing going. Yeah.
And,
I remember
he's
that.
a very talented actor, but he's not the most interesting actor. He's not Brad Pitt. I mean, who was not there? But Bono was there.
Brad Pitt was not there.
I don't think he was there. Anna Wintour was there.
How
Bill
bizarre.
Murray was there.
How bizarre.
Yeah.
No, the Brad Pitt was not there.
Tony, are these people really friends, or is it just for the cameras?
Of course they're friends.
Of course they're friends.
Come on.
I mean, Anna Wintour and George Clooney, besties.
Like
I mean, come on.
Okay.
But it was a huge paparazzi frenzy. So of course.
The funny thing is that a lot of cameramen I know and have worked with in many dangerous places, I saw they were in Venice this week shooting this, and I actually had to write to one of them who worked with me in Iraq of just keep your head down. Just keep safe. It was ridiculous.
Everybody was there. It can be dangerous too.
You can fall into a canal.
Exactly.
If you don't, and the water ain't too clean.
Ain't too clean. I don't think since Madonna's wedding we've seen that much, brouhaha. The Scotland Madonna wedding.
Right. That was, of course, that set a new record. But this raised the bar. But actually, the one thing about George Clooney, he is cool as a cucumber. Like the paparazzi asked a bunch of questions, and he was like, "Yeah, we're getting married right now." And he's pretty. I think he's at his element in Italy. He has a home there in Lake Como. He lives there most of the time. He's very continental.
Clooney.
Yes.
Senor Clooney.
Yes, Senor Clooney.
Nespresso, what is it?
And Nespresso. Yeah, we're pushing his cafe. Which doesn't advertise for that in the States, in the U.S. No, I think it's just in Europe.
It's just in and around Europe.
Yeah.
But doesn't he marry? He's not such an airhead. He married a woman of substance.
I'm glad you raised that point.
A beautiful woman of substance.
I'm glad you raised that point because I keep walking around asking, and again, you can call me the B word, but what is she doing with him? This is a very accomplished woman.
Yeah, Ellie, he's gorgeous.
Oh, come on.
But let's just say that they have their age difference will keep it interesting.
Yes,
because she's I think 30s, 36 or something.
And he's not.
He's north of 50.
20, he's 20 years older.
Yeah, north of 50. Looks great as any movie star would.
He's got a Cary Grantish thing going on.
He's got a Cary Grantish thing going on.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. Yes.
Well, anyway.
Yes, us little minions discussing this here in the Middle East.
Venice
moving on.
Venice is still a buzz. Those waves that we see, they're coming from George Clooney's gondola. Now, not all couples are getting together these days, Some of them are breaking apart.
Ooh.
Well, Wiz Khalifa and Amber Rose, Splitsville. Now, just the other day, she was twerking in support of her man. She's a
twerker.
She's a twerker. He had a huge hit, and she was twerking in support of that. She's like, I would do anything for him. Well, now they're getting divorced.
That's a twerk for you.
Yeah. Moving on.
Please, because I've got a confession to make.
Now, I have
no idea who these people are.
I'm just sitting here thinking, am I the only one?
All right. Listen, let's bring it back into our age bracket.
Please,
and I haven't uttered these two words for a long time, but I'm going to say it right now. Meg Ryan.
Yes.
Okay.
I will not fake an orgasm.
Did you know that she and John, speaking of faking or not, she and John Cougar Mellencamp are reportedly splitting up, and who knew they were together?
I did, actually.
Wow.
I did.
Okay, take it away.
I know.
Take it.
There are things you do when up with a baby in the middle of the night where you have to browse all kinds of networks.
I mean, I had no idea that they were an item.
Quite a few years, I think. Even like 2 or 3 or something like that.
Sort of they had like a Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban thing going on.
In that circle.
Yeah. So they broke up.
Well, apparently, yeah. So they're not going through some hard times.
Devastated.
Maybe he'll write a song about it and she'll do a movie.
Yes. Who else?
Okay. I've been waiting for this one. Kanye West was booed at a fashion show in Paris. And it was not because he was showing ample side boob. Last week was National Side Boob Day in the United States. Yeah.
How did we miss that?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, we were on vacation.
Well, it happens.
Yeah.
But now Kanye West was wearing a controversial outfit, and Kim Kardashian was looking great. But apparently, there they are.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
he also came with the dress.
He was just rocking that look, and they weren't booing him for that. But apparently, held up the show for like 40 minutes and had a swarm of photographers waiting.
So much to say.
So much to say.
He
looks good in blue. You can't say he doesn't look good in blue.
No, he definitely does look.
But is he showing too much?
I'm just impressed that did he have an operation? Yeah.
Also controversial. They brought their baby to the fashion show, and they have you been to a fashion show?
Yes.
That music, of course. That music is.
Yeah, it's
loud.
booming. It's loud.
Maybe too loud for a little baby's ears.
I don't think the baby's a year. No?
So now I understand he had to be free to nurse.
Exactly. Ching. Touche. Wow.
Exactly. Also, controversy in Paris. You know, so.
Yes.
Donna Summer?
Oh no, sadly, I've been two words.
New movie coming out about her life.
Who?
Donna Summer.
Yes. Finally.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for that.
Yeah.
Okay, and when we get back, more about inequality between men and women, which sadly we still have to report on. Before anything else, though, let's go back to the morning headlines. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. I-24 News Morning Edition, the place you should be, and I'll tell you why. Because we are joined in studio by I-24 News editor and our private feminist expert and investigator, Karen Kiesh. Good morning to you. Of course, Ronnie Stav here as well. It's the Chick Parade. Yes, hello. And what do you have for me today?
Well, apparently since the beginning of this year, there's something that makes me a tad optimistic.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Boys,
we're seeing the ceiling, the glass ceiling.
No,
yeah.
I said a tad optimistic. Well, the reason I'm optimistic is that young girls, are beginning to protest school codes, school dress codes. Because as we know in many places in the US and also in Israel, there is no uniform. And girls are sort of, the schools look upon their shorts.
There's a code.
There's a code.
Things you're not supposed to do.
Yeah. And it's not just a code. It's a code that was enforced, and that was enforced even in the beginning of this year. There were cases of 200 girls getting detentions.
And the code meaning what? The dress shouldn't be short?
The pants shouldn't be above the knee. Mini skirts. I heard a story just now about not being allowed to wear tights for sports.
Oh, okay. So I do it in jeans? Yeah.
All sorts of things that sort of show off your body.
Right.
And the title it's been getting in the world is school slut shaming, but I wouldn't call it slut shaming. I would call it girl shaming.
Yeah.
And it's very, very interesting that girls are beginning to protest that, and there are Facebook pages and there are schools where there have begun like slut walks. When boys are also maybe wearing skirts or something like that, because the interesting thing is that boys wouldn't be judged according to how they wear.
Yeah.
Nobody would say to a boy, don't wear shorts.
And not
or
only
don't take your shirt off
at the
end of a gym class.
Exactly. And it raises the question again when it comes to education. What do we teach our girls? If it is your responsibility or it's your fault if you're showing off your body, that something bad will happen.
Yeah.
That is the message that comes out of this.
It's first of all, it's a double standard, because we are sort of educating our girls to notice the way that they look and to consider, to conform. Right. It's their responsibility. And also, we're not teaching our boys.
But that's what I meant by education. As opposed to putting the responsibility on the male. If somebody looks, if the way I dress raises something violent in him, it's his problem.
Yes.
It's his problem. I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do because I'm a free human being, or so we think we are.
Yeah, and it adds up to all the lists of do's and don'ts that we are supposed to adhere to. Don't walk alone,
Yeah.
It's all these
ultimately,
things.
though, I have to say that we all come from, Western societies, and at the end of the day, if we go to an interview, and that's another thing, I'm not saying come with, with your bra only, but there is a way to dress for an interview, you know what I mean? Right. For a woman.
Yeah.
And that
there is a way to present certain features if you want to be...
taken seriously.
And it starts at a really, really young age. At school, where most girls, I'm pretty sure, don't even feel that sexual anymore. And that's on one hand, and on the other hand, they watch YouTube and see how they're supposed to.
Exactly. And affirm yourself, assert yourself. Celebrate your body.
How are you supposed to balance that or settle that? And I sort of I went a little bit further down to our little babies. Yes. We have babies. Have you made an effort to find a gender neutral?
No, I mean
like
the one thing that drives me crazy in Israel, and that because I had a little girl and then I had a little boy, and it was almost impossible to find anything that was not pink for the baby girl when she was born. That it was. So I bought her only male clothes. I really did.
And what amazes me is that
How is she feeling about that today?
She's great at climbing trees.
Yeah. Good job.
And even if it doesn't work, you should have the choice.
Exactly. You should
to wear something that's not, you know,
pink. I mean, pink is great, but you know, it's that already in stores. When you walk into stores, it's already, you know, it's sectioned off.
It's sectioned off, and it's very sectioned off. It's not even, and there is no sort of gender neutral.
Yeah, there's very specific features you should celebrate as a kid. If you're a girl, you should be super cute. That's like one of the things.
And look, and there's also a Facebook page in Israel that young girls started that says, I'll translate for you, that teaching them the school lesson in equality. That was set up by young girls in a school in Israel.
Yes.
And you know, we're going to stop being quiet, and we'll fight back for the freedom and equality.
And there are cases turning up on that page, and there are schools that are sort of understanding that there is an equality issue here. It's not even about gender; it's about equality.
Well, thank God for that.
And they call for gender education because, you know, you can't say to a girl, be responsible for the way you dress because you'll encourage harassment and not encourage the boys. Do not objectify the girls.
Women. Why does that have to?
It's and that goes into other things, you know, to girls being better at school. So, you know, we shouldn't be the hashtag that they have in the U.S. is a really good hashtag. It's I am more than a distraction.
Thank you very much. No, which is good. I am more than a distraction.
Yes.
And is it gaining? I mean, clearly it's gaining traction.
It's gaining traction, and it's. I actually did a list. You know, New York, Utah, Florida, Oklahoma. In the United Kingdom, it started. You know, so
nice.
It's sort of.
And the range of ages for the girls who are
it's early teens. It's beginning, and that's why I say it makes me a tad optimistic because you know, if there is such a movement at an early age, maybe these people will be
these
less.
Women, amen,
you know, and men.
I know, and you know, maybe one day we'll get a female president. I'm just saying, somewhere around the world.
Yes, somewhere.
Somewhere. Yeah.
And and I also looked at other things sort of that we do as parents.
Please.
That is so. The Google published in the beginning of the year searches that parents do.
Yes.
And for every search about is my boy suffering from overweight, every 10 searches, there are 17 searches about is my daughter suffering.
Of course.
And the opposite of it is that for every 10 searches about is my girl gifted, as in smart, there are 25 searches for boys. So it's our responsibility just as much.
Yes. To show that men can be smart as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And that we can let our girls be more than their bodies.
Yes, amen. No, amen to that. But at least, you know, if people knew I'm not going to say that. Fascinating stuff there. You're locked in the studio, though, with me because we have another very smart woman. Of course. Ronnie Stav joining us, her fabulous, wonderful, beautiful entertainment, culture, and whatnot correspondent. Go for it.
All right. So we have another surprise album release online by Tom York.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I
know.
know.
What is with the online? Did the iPhone start jumping off?
It started. No. You know, it's a whole different thing. Of course, Tom York is, inventing himself and doing something that is completely new. He actually released this album called Tomorrow's Modern Box. It's by BitTorrent. So basically, it's another platform. It's not with love from iTunes, like the whole YouTube, Beyonce, and so on and so forth. And he is saying it's an experiment to see if the mechanisms of the system are something that the general public can get its head around. So basically, in this model, the music publisher covers the transaction fees, while BitTorrent takes 10% after that.
Wow.
Now, the artist is able to keep any data about the fans, which is a super important thing. He can have impressions, downloads, stream info, email addresses, so they get so much information regarding
the fans and actually taste, be it for the next album or the crowd base, the base of the crowd and the fans. Nice.
It's in the cost of $6, and in the first 24 hours he released
actually $6.
But he released the video and one of the songs, A Brain in a Bottle, for free in the first 24 hours, and it got 116,000 downloads. albums.
Wow.
So
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So he's heading in the right way.
I mean, it's Tom
But
York.
it was free.
You know, it was for free, but you know, it's Tom York. We can really say it's not really a songs type of an album.
Yeah.
It's very. Music pieces. He keeps on experimenting the whole idea of music and philosophy.
He's got a very specific fan base.
And it's definitely not Radiohead fans anymore. And Radiohead were actually the first ones to start this experiment of fans downloading the albums in 2006.
How did you know that?
Because I downloaded it. I was
actually
waiting and downloading
like you
it.
should.
Like you should.
That was a fantastic album. It was in 2006, and it was the first time where the fans were able to
actually download an album online.
And it proved to be working economically for the band, much more than doing it.
Just getting a label and do it in the old-fashioned way.
So they did it again after.
Well, isn't it also? I mean, it's the future. I mean, at the end of the day, that's how everything's going to work.
It's going to work directly. It's also it's what enables musicians who have no.
No fan base.
Exactly. Not even no fan base. No PR, no funds to just put their stuff online, and if it's good, it works.
And what's super interesting here is really that you get so much data. Yeah, it used to be where the artist only had to do his art.
Right.
Today, you can't afford only do your art. You need to do your PR. Like PR is another type of art today, and you have to know how to invent yourself as a persona. And they're getting so much information here. The artist is not anymore shut down from this.
There's direct communication.
Absolutely.
The Facebook pages of artists are.
I know that I find a bit creepy for the artist himself. I have to say.
To have those
the
fan
direct
pages
communication.
But it's all the Twitter things, and to me it's too much as well. I don't have a Twitter. I don't understand why I need to follow people writing.
Actually, the communication part I understand. The tweeting about I'm going to the toilets or whatever I don't. But but some of the artists really have sort of that. You did well. You did good. I saw you doing this. I like this. I don't like this.
It's good communication. That we have become information sucking machines.
Yes. And there's a discussion about everything. Everything is a discussion.
Oh yes. It's like the Jews are ruling the world. Okay, just say yes, and
just maybe, maybe. And from the Jews to Rio,
and
because that has so much to do.
Of course, being one myself.
Yes. And we're going with the Jews. We're going from Jerusalem to Rio. That is actually coming to Vegas. It's a little Rock in Rio is actually gonna doing the first event in Vegas. It's gonna be the first time where a Rock in Rio event hitting. The land of the free, I guess.
The land of the free.
I guess, yeah.
Rock in Rio.
Yeah, and here's Taylor Swift. She's part of the lineup, and it
I'm
includes...
going to stop you for just 1 second, because, of course, I have no life whatsoever. What is Rock in Rio?
A Rock in Rio is an event. It's coming to mark the 30th anniversary for this event. The first time was 1985.
Okay, I was already alive.
We were all. I know you think I wasn't, but
you were just born.
I was born. I was this baby wearing pink all day.
Great.
Because I had nothing else to wear, unfortunately. But and it included Queen and AC/DC, Rod Stewart, Iron Maiden.
How did I not attend that one?
Yeah, I'm sorry. But
and now it's Metallica
and now it's a little different. It's Taylor Swift and Metallica, that's right, and Linkin Park, no doubt. They will take the main stage. Sunset Stage will be taken by John Legend and the Deftones, and the full lineup hasn't been out yet.
It's just kind of modern day Woodstock-ish thing.
And it's really, they're gonna do another collaboration with Cirque du Soleil, and they're gonna build a permanent open-air city of rock venue. It's gonna have 6 stages spread over 37 acres.
With those people who fly above.
The flying people.
I love how everything in Vegas gets out of control.
It gets out of control.
It just cannot stay kind of,
No, it really can.
And then the next line is everything in Vegas gets Cirque du Soleil.
And true.
It has Cirque du Soleil attached to it.
It's true. And what are they gonna do?
Cirque du Soleil. That's one phrase before water dancing.
Just one.
Just one,
and we're gonna get there.
Yes.
And the festival will include a zip line of 3 themed rock streets built around the culture and music of the U.S., UK, and Brazil. So interesting.
In Brazil?
Yeah,
right.
because it started at Rock in Rio.
Nice.
In 2015, it's going to be back in Rock in Rio, September 2015, and it will feature Katy Perry and John Legend, and I guess some other people, and maybe some Cirque du Soleil, but who knows? Maybe they'll import,
maybe they'll
some Cirque du Soleil
to Rio.
shenanigans
into
like,
what?
into Rio.
No, loving it. It's a very good point. Everything in Vegas gets out of control. Have you ever had the steak in Vegas?
True.
It's
a
the size
steak?
of the stable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, it's the size of the stable.
And the Coke. And the Coke.
And a Coke.
That's horrible. That's
terrible.
That's everything that's wrong in the world.
Yeah, but still.
And fake.
Okay.
Yeah, there are other things in Rio that I could discuss, but they're slightly frightening, that are on display. Actually, I think one could say, because it is on display, they have Hitler's car.
What? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, sorry, they have Hitler's car on display.
Really?
Yeah, in Rio.
In Rio, not in
no,
Vegas.
No, in Vegas. What am I saying?
In Vegas.
Of course, it's in Vegas. Yes, if you want to see
to a
it.
display.
On display.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
It's
in a hotel. I forget which one.
Is there a whole exhibition?
No,
is
it's just
it
a car.
a car?
You can sit in and take a picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. 1 minute. What else we have? Real quick.
Okay. So we can see some really cool photographs of when, there you go. When art meets science. It's by South Korea-based artist Seong Houn Oh.
What is that?
Yeah. So basically, what he did, he put the photographs into water, and then he put
ruined them.
And then he put microbes into the water.
Right.
And do we have the before picture?
Yeah, that's actually Ronnie Staub.
That was me. That was me a couple of years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know. I looked at the whole exhibition is only displayed in the website, and it's called Impairments, and it's
all the time we
absolutely
have. But check it out on the website.
Please check it
Don't
out.
forget to check us out tomorrow morning. Ronnie Staub Campiers. Thank you. Visit us on the web, on our Facebook page, I-24 News Morning Edition. Tune in tomorrow morning because we're watching you as well.